What if everything you were told about your mind is not just incomplete, but precisely backwards? You have been living inside a story, a quiet, persistent story that runs in the background of everything you do, every choice you make, every moment you experience. It goes something like this. You are a biological machine. Your brain generates your thoughts the way a furnace generates heat. Your awareness is a byproduct, a convenient fiction the body tells itself to keep functioning. And when the machine stops, the fiction ends. Full stop. It is a tidy story, logical even. But here is what nobody tells you about tidy stories. They are almost always the ones that are missing the most important chapter, because there is a question that this story cannot answer. Not a philosophical nicety, not a debate for ivory tower academics, but a raw, unsettling, deeply personal question that lives at the very center of your experience right now. Why does any of this feel like something? You are reading these words and there is a quality to that, a texture, an inside. Why? Every single model of the brain as a classical computer, as a biological processor running electrochemical code, every single one of them can tell you what the brain does. None of them, not one, can tell you why it feels like anything at all to be the brain doing it. This is not a gap waiting to be filled by the next neuroscience paper. It has a name. Philosophers and scientists call it the hard problem of consciousness, and the fact that it remains brutally unsolved after decades of the most sophisticated research in human history is not a minor embarrassment. It is a crack that runs through the entire foundation of the materialist worldview. A crack that, if you follow it far enough, leads somewhere extraordinary. So here is what this journey is going to do. It is not going to hand you a new belief system. It is not going to dress old mysticism in scientific clothing and call it revelation. What it is going to do is follow the evidence, the actual physics, the actual biology, the actual mathematics, wherever it leads. And where it leads is genuinely, almost uncomfortably remarkable. By the time we are done, the question will not be whether your consciousness connects to something larger than your skull. The question will be whether it was ever truly separate from it in the first place. To move forward, we need to do something that requires a particular kind of intellectual courage. We need to stand completely still, look directly at the old story, and ask what it actually costs you to believe it. The story is Cartesian at its root. René Descartes drew a line in the 17th century, a clean surgical cut between the mind and the body, between the inner world and the outer world. It was a move that allowed science to flourish, to dissect and measure and predict the physical world with extraordinary precision. Newton built on that foundation and gave us a universe of perfect clockwork, deterministic and cold, where every effect had a mechanical cause, and the idea of a ghost inside the machine was a category error, a poetic confusion. That framework worked. It built the modern world, but it also built something else. It built a self, a specific, peculiar, deeply lonely kind of self, a self that peers out at the universe from behind the windows of its eyes and feels, at some foundational level, that it is watching a movie it did not make and cannot change. A self for whom the most vivid and immediate thing in all of existence, its own awareness, is simultaneously the thing that science has the least to say about. Here is the question that breaks the old story open, not gently, cleanly. What if the problem is not that consciousness is too mysterious to explain with physics? What if the problem is that we have been using the wrong physics? Because the physics changed, quietly, radically, and almost a century ago, the clockwork universe of Newton and Descartes was not updated. It was dissolved. What replaced it was something so strange, so resistant to common sense, that even its architects spent decades arguing about what it actually meant. It was called quantum mechanics. And it did not just add new rules to the old game. It revealed that the old game was being played on a stage that did not exist the way anyone thought it did. In the quantum world, particles do not have definite locations until they are observed. They exist as waves of pure probability, clouds of potential hovering between states, until the act of measurement collapses that cloud into a single concrete reality. Two particles can become entangled across any distance, linked in such a way that what happens to one is instantaneously mirrored in the other, with no signal traveling between them and no mechanism that classical physics can account for. The universe, at its most fundamental level, is not a collection of separate objects bumping into each other. It is a web of relationships, of probabilities, of potentials that only crystallize into definite form through the act of interaction. And here is the detail that changes everything. The observer is not separate from this process. The observer is part of it. The act of looking is not passive. In the quantum framework, measurement, observation, participation, these are not incidental. They are constitutive. They are part of what makes reality real. You were told you are a ghost in a machine, a mind sealed inside matter, watching a universe that runs perfectly well without you. What the physics actually shows is something almost diametrically opposite. The universe at its deepest layer is not running without you. It is running in some profoundly literal sense with you. That is not a metaphor. That is where the evidence goes. And we are only just getting started. So let us follow the evidence, not as a poetic exercise, but as a genuine hunt. If the universe is fundamentally quantum, and if your brain is the most complex structure we have ever found inside that universe, then the question that should have been asked decades ago is this: is your brain playing by quantum rules? The standard assumption, repeated so confidently it became invisible, was no. The brain was assumed to be a classical system, warm, wet, noisy, far too chaotic for the delicate, coherent states that quantum mechanics requires. Neurons fire, synapses transmit, chemistry cascades. The whole thing was modeled as an extraordinarily sophisticated biological computer, running on classical electrochemical signals. Impressive, yes. Quantum, no. That assumption is now cracking, and the crack begins not at the scale of neurons, but far smaller. Inside nearly every cell in your body, including every neuron in your brain, there exists an internal skeleton, a scaffolding that gives the cell its shape, manages its internal transport, and coordinates its activity. This scaffolding is built from structures called microtubules, tiny hollow cylinders made of a protein called tubulin, arranged in a precise and repeating crystalline lattice. For a long time, they were considered structural background, the biological equivalent of steel girders present everywhere, interesting to almost nobody. Then someone looked more closely at what that crystalline structure actually implied. A crystalline lattice is not random. It is ordered, regular, and periodic in a way that creates a very specific kind of physical environment. It is, in fact, exactly the kind of environment that can sustain and protect quantum coherence, the delicate state in which particles stop behaving as separate classical objects and begin behaving as a single unified quantum system, sharing identity across space in a way that has no classical analog. The physicist Roger Penrose and the anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff looked at this and proposed something that the scientific establishment initially greeted with considerable skepticism, and which has since proven considerably more durable than its critics expected. They proposed that the tubulin proteins inside these microtubules can enter quantum superposition, existing in multiple states simultaneously, and that this quantum activity, orchestrated by the cell's own biological processes, forms the actual computational substrate of conscious experience, not the neuron, not the synapse, the quantum state inside the microtubule. They called it orchestrated objective reduction, OR. The orchestration part refers to the biological machinery that sets up and maintains these quantum states. The objective reduction part refers to how they end, because quantum superposition cannot last forever. At some point, the system has to choose. In standard quantum mechanics, that choice is triggered by observation or measurement from outside. In Penrose's framework, it happens differently. The quantum state collapses on its own, not because something external disturbs it, but because it reaches a threshold defined by the geometry of space-time itself. The mass and energy involved in the superposition create a kind of gravitational instability in the fabric of space, and at the precise moment that instability becomes unsustainable, the system selects a single definite state. Penrose's proposition is that this moment of collapse, this reduction from many possible states to one actual state, is not just correlated with a moment of consciousness, it is the moment of consciousness. Each collapse is a single frame of your subjective experience, discrete and irreducible, like a quantum of awareness built directly into the structure of space-time. Now, here is where the evidence stops being merely theoretical and becomes something you can point to in the physical world. Consider anesthesia. It is one of the most common and consequential medical procedures in existence, used millions of times every year, and for most of its history, it has been one of the most poorly understood. We knew that certain gases could switch off human consciousness with remarkable precision and complete reversibility. What we did not understand was the mechanism, because the gases used in general anesthesia have wildly different chemical structures. They are not variations on a single molecule. They are chemically diverse compounds that should not be expected to act on the same biological target, and yet they all do the same thing. They all turn off the light. The one shared property that research has identified is this: all of these chemically unrelated anesthetic agents accumulate specifically inside the hydrophobic pockets of tubulin proteins within the microtubules, and they all inhibit the quantum vibrations, the coherent oscillations that Orcoar predicts are occurring there. They do not stop the neurons from firing. They do not interrupt the electrochemical signals. The classical brain keeps running, but consciousness disappears. Think carefully about what this means. The anesthetic is not shutting down the machine. It is specifically, selectively targeting the quantum activity inside the microtubules. And when that quantum activity is dampened below a functional threshold, you cease to have any experience at all. Not reduced experience, not confused experience, no experience. The light goes out. This is not a correlation. This is a dissection. It isolates the quantum processes in the microtubules as the specific biological variable on which consciousness depends. The classical brain without quantum coherence is not a dimmer consciousness. It is no consciousness, which means the quantum process is not incidental to your awareness. It may be the mechanism through which your awareness exists at all. So what does that actually mean for you, sitting here, reading this, having an experience right now? It means your brain is not a classical computer that somehow stumbled into generating subjective experience through sheer complexity. That model never had a plausible mechanism anyway. It means your brain may be something far more interesting, a quantum system, exquisitely structured at the molecular level to sustain and process coherent quantum states, collapsing them into discrete moments of experience at a rate and complexity that produces what you recognize as the continuous flow of your inner life. And if your brain is a quantum system, then it is subject to all the strange and counterintuitive properties that quantum systems have, including the ones that make the boundary between your mind and the rest of the universe considerably less solid than it appears. Here is where the practical heart of this inquiry opens up, because this is not just a story about what your brain is made of. It is a story about what your brain is doing moment to moment, in every interaction you have with the world. The physicist John Wheeler spent decades thinking about the role of the observer in quantum mechanics, and he arrived at a conclusion that sounds almost too strange to take seriously until you sit with it long enough. He called it the participatory universe. His argument was not metaphorical. It was derived from the mathematics of quantum theory itself. The universe, at the quantum level, does not exist in a definite state independently of observation. The act of observation, the act of a conscious system interacting with a quantum system, is part of what brings definite reality into being. Wheeler's phrase for this was "it from bit," meaning that the physical world, the it, emerges from information, from the bit, from the act of making distinctions, of observing, of participating. What this implies is not that you are creating the universe with your thoughts in some loose motivational sense. It is more precise and more unsettling than that. It implies that observation is not a passive act of recording a pre-existing reality. It is an active participation in the process by which potential becomes actual. You are not a camera photographing a world that is already there. You are part of the process by which the world becomes there in the first place. Now bring this down from the cosmic scale to the immediate scale of your own daily experience, because this is where the practical application lives. If your consciousness is a quantum process, and if quantum processes are participatory rather than merely receptive, then the quality of your attention is not neutral. The state you bring to any moment of perception is not a passive variable. It is an active input into what that moment becomes for you. This is not wishful thinking. It is the logical extension of the physics. Consider what happens in your own experience when you shift the quality of your attention, not the content of your thoughts, but the actual texture of your awareness. When you move from a contracted, anxious, narrative-driven state of mind to something quieter, more open, more spacious, the world does not just feel different. It literally presents differently. Things you did not notice before become visible. Connections that were invisible become apparent. The same external circumstances, processed through a different quality of consciousness, yield a genuinely different experienced reality. The old model dismissed this as purely subjective, a change in how you feel about reality rather than a change in reality itself. But if observation is participatory, if your quantum brain is not just recording the world, but interacting with it in a way that shapes what becomes actual, then the distinction between how you experience reality and what reality is becomes considerably less clear. The practical implication of this is both simple and demanding. It means that the single most consequential thing you can work on in your life is not your circumstances, not your productivity, not your strategy. It is the quality of your awareness itself, because your awareness is not just the lens through which you see the world. According to the physics, it is part of the instrument through which the world takes shape. Walter Russell, the polymath and mystic who spent his life trying to articulate the rhythmic and vibratory nature of all matter and consciousness, described the universe as a kind of cosmic conversation between opposing forces, a continuous rhythmic exchange between stillness and motion, between potential and expression. He believed that the fundamental nature of reality was not material, but informational, not substance, but pattern, not things, but relationships. What is remarkable is how closely this maps onto what quantum field theory independently arrived at through a completely different path. The universe is not a collection of objects. It is a web of interacting fields, of probabilities, of relationships. Matter is what those relationships look like when they stabilize long enough to be measured. And consciousness, by this account, is not something that happens inside that web. It is one of the ways the web experiences itself. This brings us to something you can actually work with right now. Not as a philosophical position to adopt, but as a practice of perception to experiment with. Most of the time, your attention moves like water following the path of least resistance, pulled by whatever is loudest, most urgent, most familiar. A thought arises and you follow it. An emotion surfaces and you become it. An external event occurs and you react to it. This is the default mode of the classical self, the machine responding to inputs. But if your consciousness is genuinely participatory, if it is not just registering the world, but actively engaging with the quantum field of potential from which moment-to-moment reality crystallizes, then the practice of deliberately choosing the quality of your attention becomes something far more significant than stress management or mindfulness in the popular sense. It becomes a form of participation in the actual construction of your experienced reality. The practice is not complicated, but it is not easy. It begins with a single question that you can ask at any moment, in any situation. What is the quality of awareness I am bringing to this? Not what am I thinking, not what am I feeling, but what is the actual texture of the consciousness present in this moment? Is it contracted, defended, already certain of what it will find? Or is it open, curious, genuinely available to what is actually here? The difference between those two states is not merely psychological. If the physics is pointing where it appears to be pointing, it is the difference between a closed system running on old data and an open quantum system genuinely interacting with the field of potential. It is the difference between reading a book that was already written and participating in the writing of the one that is being written right now. This does not require a meditation retreat. It does not require a new vocabulary or a new identity. It requires only the willingness to pause repeatedly and ask that question: what is the quality of awareness I am bringing to this moment? And then, without judgment or performance, to open it slightly wider. That widening is not a metaphor. It is a shift in the actual state of the quantum system, that is your brain. And according to everything the physics is telling us, that shift matters in ways that extend well beyond the boundaries of your skull. Here is where the hunt leads, somewhere most people are not prepared to follow. Everything we have traced so far, the quantum nature of the brain, the microtubules, the participatory role of the observer, the practice of conscious attention, all of it has been moving in a single direction, toward a question that inverts the entire architecture of the story you were told. Not just adds to it, inverts it. The old story said, the universe exists. Unconscious matter organizes itself over billions of years into increasing complexity. At some point, that complexity becomes a brain, and the brain, through some mechanism nobody has ever actually identified, generates consciousness as a byproduct. Awareness is the last thing to arrive. The universe is primary. Your mind is the late and accidental guest. Now hold that story up against what the physics actually shows. In quantum mechanics, The wave function, that cloud of pure potential, does not collapse into a definite reality until it is observed. The observation is not incidental to the outcome. It is structurally necessary for the outcome to exist at all. Wheeler pushed this logic to its conclusion and asked the question almost no physicist wanted to sit with. If observation is required to collapse quantum potential into definite reality, and if the universe began in a quantum state, then what was observing it at the beginning? His answer, uncomfortable and magnificent in equal measure, was that the universe is a self-excited circuit. It had to evolve observers in order to have a past. The universe did not produce consciousness as an afterthought. It required consciousness as part of the mechanism by which it becomes real. Read that again slowly, because it is not poetry. It is the logical implication of the most rigorously tested theory in the history of science. Your awareness is not a passenger in the universe. It is part of the machinery by which the universe is happening at all. This is the inversion. The universe is not primary and consciousness secondary. Consciousness is not late to the party. In the deepest sense the physics can articulate, awareness is structural. It is woven into the process by which potential becomes actual, by which the quantum fog of possibility crystallizes into the shared concrete world you and every other conscious being inhabit together. And if that is true, then what you are is not what you were told. You are not a brief biological event in an indifferent cosmos. You are not a machine that briefly believes it is aware before the electricity stops. You are a localized node in a participatory process that is, at minimum, as old as the universe itself, and possibly more fundamental than space and time as we currently understand them. You are the place where the universe folds back on itself and becomes aware of what it is doing. That is not a comfort, not at first, because it comes with something heavy. If your consciousness is not a passive recorder, but an active participant, then the quality of that participation is not neutral. Every moment of contracted, fearful, mechanical attention is a moment where the participatory process is running on its lowest setting. Every moment of genuine openness, of real curiosity, of awareness that is not defended against what it might find, is a moment where something different becomes possible. Not metaphorically, structurally. The question this raises is not abstract. It is the most intimate and immediate question you can ask. What kind of participant are you being, right now, in the process that is constructing your reality moment by moment? Because you are always participating. The only choice available to you is whether that participation is conscious or unconscious, deliberate or automatic, open or closed. The universe, as best as the physics can tell us, does not have a preferred outcome. It has a field of potential. What collapses out of that field, what becomes actual rather than merely possible, is shaped by the nature of the systems that interact with it, by the nature of the observers, by the quality of the awareness doing the observing. This is not a mandate to be relentlessly positive or to perform some curated version of enlightenment. It is something quieter and more demanding than that. It is the recognition that your inner state is not private in the way you assumed it was. It is not sealed inside your skull, affecting only your mood and your personal narrative. It is the operating state of a quantum system that is genuinely, physically entangled with the world it perceives. Your contraction is real. Your openness is real. And both of them reach further than the boundaries of your body. There is a responsibility in this that the old story never asked of you. The old story asked nothing of you, really. You were a machine responding to inputs. Your inner life was a private theater, affecting no one but yourself. The new story asks something different. It asks you to take seriously the idea that the quality of your awareness is a contribution, that what you bring to each moment is not just a personal experience, but a participation in a shared process of reality construction. This does not mean the weight of the world is on your shoulders. It means something more precise than that. It means that the one domain where your influence is always real, always immediate, and always consequential is the domain of your own attention. Not your achievements, not your productivity, your attention, the texture of your awareness, whether it is open or closed, whether it is genuine or performed, whether it is present or elsewhere. That is the frontier, not out there among the stars, though the stars are extraordinary. The frontier is the quality of the consciousness that is looking at them. David Bohm spent his career articulating a vision of the universe as an undivided whole, what he called the implicate order, a deeper layer of reality in which everything that appears separate at the surface particles, people, planets, moments in time, is enfolded into a single undivided process. What we see is the explicate order, the unfolded surface, but the surface is not the depth. The separation we perceive is real at one level and illusory at another. The way a wave is a real feature of the ocean and simultaneously not separate from it. You are a wave that has spent a long time believing it is not the ocean. The physics does not tell you what to do with that. It does not offer a program or a path. It simply removes the excuse. It removes the story that said your inner life was sealed, private, inconsequential to anything beyond your own biography. That story was always the weakest part of the model. Now it has no foundation left to stand on. So the question that remains, the one that this entire journey has been building toward, is not a question about the universe. It is a question about you, specifically about what you do with a form of awareness that is, according to the deepest physics we have, not an accident and not an afterthought, but a structural feature of a cosmos that needed observers in order to become real. What do you do with that? What changes when the ghost in the machine discovers it was never a ghost and there was never really a machine? What becomes possible when the most isolated and private thing you possess, your own awareness, turns out to be the one thing in your life that is genuinely, irreducibly connected to everything else? That question does not end when you stop reading. In fact, this is precisely where it begins. If any part of this hunt has resonated with you, consider subscribing so we can keep following these threads together, wherever they lead. And as always, everything explored here is a combination of documented science, theoretical physics, and philosophical speculation built on bibliographical sources. The mystery is real. The questions are real. The answers, as always, remain gloriously open. What is the one thing that changes for you, if this is true?